Hello and welcome back to Digital Assets Daily. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in your corner of the world. This video will be a highlight of the World Economic Forum. Some of the videos we've shared on our Twitter page. We wanted to, we were requested to do a video on our YouTube as there are individuals who are singularly on Twitter and singularly on YouTube who missed the content as we had discussed and requested a video of sharing them. So basically here it is. This is how we're going to begin. The World Economic Forum was a basic focus on the fourth industrial revolution, as you see on their page here. So with that thought in mind, let's dive right in and begin. This states we couldn't be more excited about the recent trade deals signed, the US, Mexico, Canada agreement, and China Phase 1, on top of the deal we did with Japan and the deal we did with Korea.
So what do you see the US economy, and what will be your policy, particularly in the fiscal area, to support and the US economy continue to expand, which is obviously important for the whole world?
Well, I think the U.S. economy continues to be the bright spot of growth around the world. I think if you look at the performance, it's clearly related to the President's economic agenda, which has been a combination of tax cuts, regulatory relief, and trade deals. We couldn't be more excited about the recent trade deals signed, the U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement and China Phase 1, on top of the deal we did with Japan and the deal we did with Korea.
So what do you see the U.S.
The next headline videos, but more important than trade for me is technology, and we see it already. Sorry.
And we see it already.
We're going to try that one again. Didn't realize the volume was turned off. Alright, let's see what's going on there.
But more important than trade for me is technology, is the divide in technology. And we see it already. But
there we go. For some reason they had the play button was not in the location that it was showing. Next one is the new technologies, fourth industrial revolution, mobilizing the private sector and two different systems. It seems the volume's turned himself off. Let's start again. My apologies. What's going on with this? Having a little trouble with it this morning.
Last summer, we signed this strategic partnership between the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. And you also mentioned the new technologies, the fourth industrial revolution, the SDGs, and I think we easily agree that without also mobilizing the private sector and the business community, we will have big challenges meeting the targets that are set. And it's very good to see here during our Davos meeting that many companies have come out and said that we will go carbon neutral by 2050. But coming back to the technologies, and as you know, we are also working on how we can get a better governance of these new technologies that can do a lot of positive things for humankind, but they also are challenges. And now we see the decoupling a possible two different systems. The geopolitics are also working on this. So how to make sure that these technologies work in the interest of humankind, and are you concerned about two systems? How will that influence also global economic growth, and how to avoid that?
Next we have, let's go ahead and check the volumes on all of these before we even begin. For some reason they turned off. ECB and BOE convene joint technical working group on Brexit.
You know, it's one of the questions that I've asked the teams. What happens when Brexit happens? Are we all ready? Have we taken all the steps that we had to take? Have we alerted sufficiently the private sector operators to themselves take the right measures? And my assessment today is that yes, we have. Just to remind you, back in March of 2019, we activated swap lines with the Bank of England to make sure that on both sides of the channel there would be enough euros and sterlings so that operations could continue in a smooth manner despite the implementation of Brexit. We have alerted and reminded the banks of all the necessary measures that they have to take in order to be in a good position to continue to operate irrespective of Brexit. And we have reason, good reason to believe that this is so. And don't forget that, there was this high-level working group between the Bank of England and the ECB at the level of both president and governor in order to make sure that they had checked all the boxes and covered the potential risks. You never know. There can always be a risk somewhere, but I think that in good conscience we have looked at everything that we thought was necessary. It's one of the...
And so what we did is, a lot of people were unaware of that important statement, so we pulled up the article and shared it. With 6 central banks form digital currency use case working group. And 6 central banks have formed a working group with the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS, to share findings as each investigates potential cases for central bank digital currencies. The group will be comprised of the central banks of Sweden, Canada, Switzerland, the UK, and Japan, as well as the European Central Bank ECB and the BIS. Announced by all 7 members Tuesday, each institution will continue assessing the economic function and technical design choices, including cross-border interoperability of CBDCs, and will sharing any findings. The next video, let's just see. It looks like that's just going to be the volume issue. We'll deal with that. The global innovation ecosystem is open. It's benefited from an open system, involved more international organizations about 5G or AI, where they have interoperability issues, involve technology specialists and how technology can be used to connect with each other.
The global innovation ecosystem is open. It's benefited from an open system. And of course, we do not want to see anyone close their own doors to disrupt the global innovation ecosystem. And so that's why I think when 2 countries are in tension, we should involve more international organizations, especially when people are talking about 5G or AI, where they have interoperability issues. I think we should involve more international organizations to involve more technology specialists to define the standards, more countries to collaborate to define the technology standards and how technology can be used and how they can connect with each other. So in that way, that will create a new collaborative relationship between the 2 countries, besides the competitive dynamics. The global...
The next clip shared is in the next month or 2, the U.S. will release new policy. The U.S. will have a level playing field. This discussion was in regards to current countries and like digital assets, cryptocurrency regulations, etc. And I believe it was Stephen Mnuchin who basically said, the U.S. will release guidelines soon, and I believe this was the discussion, her response into that. Oh, sorry. I don't know what's going on with these volumes today. Twitter's not liking the YouTube today. Here we go.
Next month or 2, U.S. will release new policy regarding expanding the power of CFIUS to review the Chinese investment in the U.S., especially in the technology sector. So that is the fundamental interest of competition between U.S. and China. And I think in this new era, the new technology will make this issue even more intense, because China's rise really benefited from the global trade, globalization, and more because of the emergence of the internet. So internet boosted democratization of information. And also, especially during the mobile internet age, China benefited greatly by leveraging its 1.4 billion people. And the internet revolution really revolutionized many industries. And the new era of AI, IoT, 5G will actually even more boost the national competitiveness and productivity of the country, of each country. So that's why this new era of technology is becoming more important for geopolitics. And think about so China right now, the national companies are already very competitive technologically, although US is still leading in advanced technology research, but China is very aggressive on application. So the AI, IoT, 5G will more apply to the industries. And imagine all the manufacturing facilities in China will adopt IoT or will be automated through AI and analytics, and how that will boost the country to grow even further. So that is why I think U.S. right now is trying to localize the supply chain in U.S. That's actually also possible because AI, IoT, and 5G actually will democratize the labor cost. And that will actually potentially bring a lot of manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. So I think that will be very interesting dynamics for the next phase of competition between the two countries. On the one hand, China has a lot of use cases for industrial application for technology. On the other hand, U.S. will, kind of be more competitive by, the labor costs have a level playing field.
Yeah, I personally had no idea the level of the power of Steven Mnuchin's position, whether on stage with the leaders, the financial leaders at his side, or in private discussions. And he kind of makes that clear throughout this World Economic Forum. The next one, the digital trade deal, is a very big deal. Oh, here we go again.
Secretary, if I can bring you back in here, one area I think where there is some disagreement, and let's see how this gets resolved. 22 months to do a trade deal with the Chinese, a conversation between President Trump and President Macron to get a volte-face on the French introduction of a digital tax. The UK says it's going to plough ahead with its own plan in April. Can they get a trade deal with you if they insist on introducing a digital tax in April?
We'll be having some private conversations about that we don't need to have on TV.
No, please do. Please do.
I've made some comments on this already, and we'll be having some private conversations. And I'm sure the president and Boris will be speaking on it as well, as the president did with Macron.
But this is a principled issue for you and for the American government, it seems. You just don't want foreign governments and countries imposing taxes on your digital industry willy-nilly.
No, the willy-nilly is the important part. I think we've been pretty clear that we think that the digital tax is discriminatory in nature. There's an OECD process that we're participating in. International tax issues are very complicated. They take long times to look at. And if people want to just arbitrarily put taxes on our digital companies, we'll consider arbitrarily putting taxes on car companies.
So I take away from that if the tax is imposed in April, UK industry can expect some reciprocal tariffs. Is that a fair assessment?
We're going to have some private conversations. I'm sure this will be worked out, if not at our level, between the Prime Minister and the President, who have an excellent relationship.
But there's a very clear threat there, given what you just said about the European auto industry.
Again, I want to just be clear. I think this is an important issue that we'll deal with. But going back to, let me just say, the more important stuff, let's not get sidetracked on...
Well, this is important for the markets. They will be worried about
I don't think the markets are worried about this. I think the markets are very focused on two gigantic trade deals that the U.S. just did.
The next, she said securitized tokenization of assets depend on stablecoins they need to convert currencies.
Right, and so I'm curious, like how far are we from the example you gave of the farmer in India who actually could take their crop yield, let's say, and securitize that via tokenization? I mean, how would you even begin to access that kind of a market creation as an average citizen?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still a good ways off, but maybe not that far off. You know, they're sort of in this sphere. There's sort of different layers that have to be in place. So we have like the blockchain technology itself, which I think of as like these new operating systems for the internet that deal with these fiduciary trust applications. And so there's huge advancements happening there and in that technology where it'll be scalable and usable by hopefully billions of people in the coming years. The second is in order to transact, like in that example, presumably, the people who would want to own some of that need a way to move value into that contract. And so they need a stablecoin in order to do that. So you need essentially versions of money that also run in this code environment and can be transferred. So the growth of stablecoins is a precondition to the growth of tokenized assets. But that, even if you use that India example, you know, that farmer in India needs to be willing and able to accept a stablecoin and be able to use that stablecoin, say, to pay their employees or to purchase bread at the store. And is that a dollar stablecoin, or is there a market that converts between dollars and, you know, rupee stablecoins? And so there's like think of it as like a market infrastructure layer that kind of needs to exist before you can even utilize and invest in a token like that. But all of those things are sort of happening in parallel, and there's some point, I would say, in the next 2 to 3 years, where they kind of converge and where those become much more realistic for people to execute on.
In this video, there is a standard. My apologies for the sound. I don't know what's going on.
Or the liquidization of these kinds.
With them not connecting today.
What are some of the other challenges? Are there security, cybersecurity risks with the tokenization or the liquidization of these kinds of assets?
Yeah, definitely. This is new technology. Blockchain technologies really only existed for 10 years total. We're writing very complex protocols, the software is pretty risky, and it's operating in a pretty adversarial environment. So there have been a lot of bugs, a lot of vulnerabilities and problems with cryptocurrency technology that's being used to build these tokenized asset systems. And so I think we really have to be careful. We really have to be very cautious. We also have to think about things like standards and best practices. One of the really exciting things about this technology is that it allows us to innovate in so many different areas around financial assets. For example, custody. Now we can think about custodying assets in a very different way, where we can spread out the risk of who actually has control of the asset. However, we haven't really figured out exactly what the standard should be for these new types of custodians. So there's a lot of challenges to figure out with best practices, with cybersecurity, definitely.
In this video, we're in the very early stages of writing the next chapter of banking, and that chapter is entitled Digital.
What is the role that Citi can play?
Well, I would, Jeremy uses his metaphor of an arc, and I would agree. I think the way we speak to things is that we're in the very early stages of writing the next chapter of banking, and that chapter's entitled Digital.
What is the role that Citi can play?
Well, I would,
Okay. This article is how money can work through blockchains. Digital currencies will be able to be projected out to any internet-connected device in the world with the same ease that we can share content. Okay.
Where we're finally revisiting the very core of the financial system. We're looking at the very nature of money. We're looking at the very nature of how money is issued, how it's distributed, how it's utilized. And fundamentally, there are several things happening right now that are driving that. So organically, over the last 10 years since the financial crisis, we've seen this growth in an alternative architecture for how money can work through blockchains. Very recently, we've seen the growth in stable value cryptocurrencies or stablecoins backed by central bank money. US dollar currencies and others. But really, critically, the inflection point is also driven by two major facts. The first is, an alliance of some of the very largest technology companies in the world announcing a stablecoin project that will reach billions of people, and a currency and a digital currency model that will allow people everywhere to transact with each other, people and firms everywhere to transact with each other with the same ease that we communicate and share data. And that's very deep at the core of the financial system. And we're also seeing stable value digital currencies being launched this year by massive national sovereigns such as China, who's introducing a stable value cryptocurrency built on the Chinese yuan and the RMB. And ultimately, that has tremendous implications where these digital currencies will be able to be projected out to any internet-connected device in the world with the same ease that we can share any piece of content to any internet-connected device in the world, where we're finally...
As we're nearing the end, the digital transformation is exactly the same kind of issue. The fourth industrial revolution is coming, but prices are not yet forcing the actors to make the investments. Fourth industrial is in parentheses, as that's what the entire show is about, but he does not physically say. I don't believe in this one.
Financial markets should be supportive. Prices don't incentivize either private institutions, banks, insurance, or other companies to make these investments. And the digital transformation is exactly the same kind of issue. The revolution is coming, but prices are not yet forcing the actors to make the investments. Financial markets.
In this article, the financial markets are not supportive and not helping, mainly because what I see is price distortion. So prices are not incentivizing the actors to behave and make the investments of which will improve the speed of this transformation. And a lot of investors are feeling the same frustration.
Is that the financial markets are not supportive and not helping, mainly because what I see is the price distortion. So prices are not incentivizing the actors to behave and make the investments which will improve the speed of this transformation and make the solutions available quickly to all of us. This is that the financial market.
We're going to finish off with this next video. The amount of transformation in retail is so massive, or by the same brands that transform themselves, morphing themselves into different companies. And I stated it creates a visual of Ripple Stellar.
The amount of transformation in retail is so massive that I think we can imagine that in a few years' time, the retail industry of insurance will be dominated by different players or by the same brands that transform themselves or morphing themselves into different companies. The amount.
All right, guys, we're going to finish off with that. It was a little bit different video for us, but we were up for the challenge, and not financial advice. We're here for entertainment purposes only. So we will catch you guys in the next one.